Good morning or good afternoon, Ugandan agriculture educators. I hope that you're all doing very well today. My name is Olivia Murphy Sweet, and I'm the Executive Director of Field of Hope. And I'm here to bring to you today some inspiring students in agriculture grant tips and tricks to hopefully get you started for your application for 2025. Now, you've already heard from David and Annie about what this application entails and how you apply for it and what's all that criteria. However, I'm here to bring to you today some things that you can incorporate into your application that reviewers in the United States would want to read about as they are selecting those applications. Don't worry, at Field of Hope, we do try to make sure that this is not a biased process. So I bring on people that maybe have never been to Uganda before or have only worked in United States agriculture class settings. So this is why these tips and tricks will be very important for you to incorporate in your application because it's things that past board members and past reviewers have mentioned that they've seen that they'd like to see some corrections on for this year. So without further ado, I'm going to share with you all some of my tips and tricks. I'm going to highlight some common mistakes that I've seen on applications that can be avoided. I'm going to highlight some good things that I've seen and that committee members that I bring together want to see. But also, I'm going to highlight some clarifications that may be needed. So again, this has been over the course of since I've been hired on at Field of Hope, of things that the board members and reviewers have noticed. And I just want to bring that to your attention this year as you're starting that application process here soon. All right, so for some common mistakes, and again, if you have any questions too at the end of this presentation, please feel free to message me on WhatsApp. Whether or not I get back to you right away, depending on the time change, will definitely have some implications, but please just be patient, and I promise one of us will get back to your questions immediately. So here are some common mistakes that we saw last year and a previous year beforehand that I'd like to mention. So we do have two ways to submit your application for the Inspiring Students in Agriculture grant. One of those is to print off the PDF document that you'll see online and handwrite that application process if you don't have access to a computer. However, if you do want to print and handwrite that application, please make sure that it's neat and it's block handwriting so we can read and get that processed and digested here in the US. There's nothing worse than seeing a really great application, but us not understanding the words that are on there because we can't decipher the handwriting. So please make sure you use neat block handwriting so that anyone can pick up your paper and be able to read it. Another common mistake that we've seen is lack of specifics when describing your goals, your plans, and your expected outcomes. So, for example, I've seen people say, we're going to expect our students to gain new skills and new experiences. Okay, but what does that mean, right? What kind of skills are they going to gain? What new experiences are they going to do, right? If I pick up your paper and I read that, I have no clue on what your students are wanting to do or what you hope that your students will gain. So please be explicit whenever you're writing down what those goals are, what your objectives are, and what you hope your students will learn from this experience. If you don't write it, we have no idea. Another common mistake that we've seen, and these are the different sections that you'll have identified in the application. So the first one that we see is the lack of mention of community. Now, community is a big part of what we do at Field of Hope. Every project that we create with you, we want to include the administration, other school teachers, as well as the community outside of that school to use your project as a model. And so, how is the community going to be involved in your project? How will it impact them to develop their own skills that they can replicate their own projects whenever they go back home? So, we really want you to be thought-provoking as well as interested in working with the outside community because again, they're the ones that are probably going to be your biggest cheerleaders because they're on the outside of the school. They know that you're there, they want to help you and they want to support you. So how will you include them? The second one is our challenges and solutions section. So we do understand that while we wish every project was absolutely perfect, there was no problems that were going to happen, we do know that there are challenges that will arise. However, we want to see how are you going to mitigate those? So we know that there might be a problem. How will you, as the teacher, lead your community and your students in addressing those challenges, right? So I want you to also be thought-provoking and tell us that story of if you have a problem where, for example, you have a piggery on your school property and a pig gets out, well, what the heck are we going to do? How are you going to mitigate that solution? Who's the person you're going to call? Who's the student that you know might know exactly where that pig might have gone to or can track that down and help you out, right? I know that's a silly example. However, those things do happen. I've heard crazier stories. So please think about what you would like to do, and what that plan would be. Last but not least, too, if there's any dependencies without which the project cannot proceed, we need to know the details on what, when, and how that will happen. So, for example, if you want to do a chicken project, right, a chicken producing project, you don't have the structure yet for that hen house. What are you going to do? What's that process? How is your administration going to support you on that? Is there plans already in the works to get that done? We want to hear everything and anything that you have to help us understand where you are in that project and how we can best assist. And so, again, it's over explaining the story, which we need to know on our side. All right, so those are some of my tips on some things I've seen that have not worked out. Let's talk about things that have worked out. So, some good practice tips for your application. Now, this one's fun, and I hope you've been getting this understanding since I've been talking that if you feel like you are over explaining this project, you are doing it right. There is no such thing as over explanation whenever it comes for you writing for someone that's going to review your application for them to fully understand. Don't assume that we know everything on what you're going to need. Don't assume that David and Annie also know your school context and your school culture. We try our best to have our hands in all of your schools. However, you're the best one that can tell your story. So please make sure that if you're over explaining, that's great. I want to hear it all, the good and that bad. Next, have a good administrative presence in your application. It shows that you do have a school support system so that in case you need to leave for a holiday or you have problems that are arising, we know that your administration is 100% on board with you. So please make sure that you kind of share that story with us. Tell us how those relationships are in your school because we want to know what's going on. Who's going to be your support system there? The objectives of the project should also be clear and sustainable. We love these SMART goals of things that we want to accomplish. I also love the objectives of what we want to see happen with these projects. However, they should be clear and they should not be vague. So please make sure you're very explicit in what you're wanting to do. Another good tip of practice is that I want you to explain how this is good for the students, right? Whenever you get this grant money, the process is that this is going to impact your students' lives and their outcomes of what you want them to graduate and leave your classroom with, right? So, what are they going to learn? How will proceeds, if there were any, go back to either the students or the project? We had an application a couple years ago that said, well, 20% of this grant is going to go into the teacher's pocket because we're doing the work, right? And I know how hard you all work. However, your students will be doing the majority of the work once you set them up for success, right? So I don't want to see, oh, we're going to put this money in our pocket because we're helping the students. No, these proceeds and benefits should go to your students because this is who the project is going to be benefiting the most. So I want to hear the story about how this will help your students. Another one as well. So again, I talked about over explanation, clear objectives, telling that story of your community. If you are still nervous that your application might not be ready to turn in, give that project application to another teacher in your school. Have them review it. If they have questions, assume that we are going to have the same questions as well. So if a teacher reads it and says, well, what's going to happen if you go on holiday? And that answer isn't in there, add that in. Use your peer support network that you have around you because they're going to be the best ones to help guide and help you make your application the best that it can be. Last but not least, I want you to explain the why for this project, and that will be vital for the selection committee, right? So, the people that are going to be reviewing these applications will not be Field of Hope team members. We'll be there to guide and answer any questions, but the selection is going to come from board members of Field of Hope, teachers that we know in the United States, as well as a partner that we have that is going to be supporting two grants this year. So some of these people have never even been to Uganda before. So how can you explain that best story of what is going to help them select you on your application? And so again, be over explicit, be as detail oriented as you possibly can to help tell your story. I know this is quick and this was brief. However, I think these are some great tips and tricks that you can add to your application as you get those started this year. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am on WhatsApp and I can also answer any questions if you put them directly into the Field of Hope agriculture platform as well. But I can't wait to read some of your applications. I can't wait to get to see who's going to be selected this year. And again, if you have any concerns, questions, or just want to chat, please feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to talk to you all. All right, have a great rest of your day, and I will hopefully be hearing from you all soon. Bye.